Hello, we're so excited because we're here with Kerry Schafer today, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation about her writing history and also, and particularly, about her latest release. Ta-da! But we'll get to that one a little bit later. Um, we want to welcome you to the group. The group is initiating or inaugurating or whatever you want to call it. It's changeover to a new name and a sort of a new way of doing things over time. And I believe I'm calling it the First Wednesday group. Does that make sense? The First Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay. And that way we can just rotate all sorts of different things. But we're really excited that today we're kicking off with Kerry with her author showcase. And Kerry, I want to ask you um, first to talk a little bit about your writing history and how you got into it and all that, because that's always fascinating. But then I want to know, you've done two or three series, haven't you?
I have a couple of series,
Oh,
um,
trying
mostly standalones,
kind of
actually.
down. So I want to know how you ended up picking this latest one. This is a brand new series, gang, and maybe that, and particularly if you can. Well, let's wait for a minute. Go ahead and talk
Okay.
about your history. How's that?
Okay. All right. Well, that's a lot. So, I like many writers. I started writing long ago. I fell in love with books when I was a very young child, and I started writing very bad poetry around about sixth grade. Didn't have a clue how to write fiction, even though that was what I liked to read. And I kind of came to that in my early 20s. I started writing my first fantasy novel, which took me 10 years to complete. Writing around kids and work and my husband and all of that stuff. I got serious about writing around about the time I hit 40. I figured I better get on with this if I really wanted to do anything before I die. You know, you have a moment where you're like, oh, well, if it's a dream, it can be a dream or maybe it could be reality. So that's when I really started making a point of making time to write. And my first book was published. Gee, now it's probably 11 years now. I'm thinking that my first fantasy book, not the one that I had been writing for 10 years, that will never see the light of day. Um, yeah, my first book was published 11 years ago, and it was a book called Between. I wrote it as a standalone, but it got picked up by Penguin. It was Penguin then, became Penguin Random, but I like to call it Random Penguin because that's so much more fun. I like thinking of random penguins wandering through. And as a matter of fact, it was extra fun because Between actually had a penguin in it. It was a fantasy book, and my companion animal for my heroine is a penguin that travels through time and space with her. So anyways, I wrote it as a standalone, and the publisher said, "Hey, we think this would be a trilogy. Fantasy books should be a trilogy." But they only they only contracted for the first two, and then they didn't think it sold well enough, so they dumped me. I'm not the kind of person that was prepared to let it just stand there because, well, now I needed a third book to finish it. So that was my first book that I did indie. I did a Kickstarter and I played for the very first time with doing an indie book and completed the trilogy. So the Between trilogy is actually a thing and has 3 books in it. And then after that, I started the series that Linda was talking about earlier, I think before we started recording, which is the Shadow Valley Manor books. Again, this time I really wasn't planning a series at all, and I wasn't even planning this book. So this was a book. The first book is called Dead Before Dying.
That's the one.
That's the one. And it was written on a dare, to be honest. So I was playing around online. That was back when Twitter was still Twitter and before it got, I don't know. It was really fun in the early days of Twitter. It was kind of like the Wild West. And I had a name. I wasn't even me, I was Uppington. So it felt very free. I could say whatever I wanted. And I actually really liked that. But we were making fun. Some friends and I on Twitter were making fun of things, sparkly vampires, and the fact that like a 200-year-old vampire would be in love with kind of a sulky little 16-year-old girl who didn't have, anything particularly, intelligence or anything like that. I know I was being snarky, and those books are hugely successful, and my apologies to the author. But one of my friends said, I dare you, because I was joking around. I'm going to write a vampire that's like old when he gets turned, and he's in a wheelchair, and he doesn't have any teeth, and he has arthritis, and you really kind of like to die, only you can't because he's now undead. And my friend said, I dare you to write this. And so I actually did. So that's where that book came from, was the idea of a geriatric vampire. And from there, I mean, who are you going to, if you have a geriatric vampire, who's going to be the protagonist? Well, obviously, I need somebody who is a professional paranormal investigator type. So that was Maureen. Maureen came on board. She's really one of my favorite characters, actually. She's turning 60. She's had a lifetime of working for a secret FBI unit that tracks paranormal phenomena. And she's been wounded on the job, so they don't want her anymore. Her husband wants a divorce, and she doesn't know what she's going to do. So she goes and takes a job in this upscale retirement community called Shadow Valley Manor, where our geriatric vampire lives, along with some other much more scary beasties. She has to figure out who's killing all of the people and put a stop to it. So that turned into a series. There are 3 books now.
That one. Mhm.
So that was really fun. And then, but again, that was not something. I tend to write weird things that mainstream publishing isn't all that excited about. So then my agent suggested I might want to try something that a publisher would be interested in. So then I wrote 7 women's fiction books that are my most successful, best known books under the pen name of Carrie King. They did actually really well for me and allowed me to quit my day job and be a full-time writer for a while. Not so much right now. I'm supplementing my income, but it's all good. So I wrote, seven books as Carrie Ann King. And then things happened at that publishing house, as tends to happen if you're in this business for any length of time. It happens to almost everybody, except if you're Stephen King or, one of those people. My publisher decided they did not want the next book from me. So then I was like, well, now what I'm going to do? And I was tired of writing women's fiction, to be honest. It was great to write for a while. You get to do really in-depth characters and emotions and psychological conflicts and growth journeys, but I was really, really just wanted to do something different. So for the fun of it, I decided I wanted to write a series. I love murder mysteries. I really like amateur sleuths. I love humor in my books and really kind of quirky characters and a good mystery. So I thought I'd try that. And my agent very sweetly tried to sell it for me for a bit, and it didn't take off right away. And I decided, you know what? I think what would be really fun right now is to just see how much fun I could have publishing this one on my own. So I did it indie, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now.
Fun goes on. Hey, that main character in this book, I really want to know where she came from. She's fantastic, and I swear I hear a little bit of Carrie in there.
Yeah, somebody I know actually mentioned that. So should I tell them a little bit about what the book's actually about before we get into that? Okay, so party planning can be murder, which I am totally envisioning a series. I'm a little more than halfway through book 2, and I have the idea for book 3. I got thinking about, what if there was somebody who planned parties for dead people, and this is not paranormal, so not like in place of a funeral. What if you had a huge party for your send-off instead of a funeral? And it wasn't like a celebration of life. It was like really a literal party. So I thought, I'd kind of like that when I go. I think that would be fun. And so then I got thinking about that. Well, what kind of person would be the investigator in a book like that? Well, obviously she'd have to be some kind of a party planner. Well, what would get her sucked into planning parties for dead people? So we start with her grandmother, who has died and who wanted a party, but the family was not on board with that. So she ends up with the traditional funeral. And Addie, my main character, really, really wanted to give her a party. So when she gets hit up by a former high school friend of hers, now a mega hit rock star who is dying and wants a mega star studded party, she says, yeah, maybe she could do that for him. But then he dies way ahead of the scheduled date, and she has an idea that perhaps maybe somebody helped him along. So then she gets to investigate. So that's the premise. um, and it allows me to use my really dark and twisty humor and create some quirky characters. Linda wanted to know where the main character came from, and really honestly for me, my characters just kind of show up. I sit down to write. Maureen did the same thing for Shadow Valley. I sit down and start playing around, and the character just kind of starts writing with me, through me, for me. And I try not to think about it too much and let them have a voice. And Addie just kind of showed up. And there are some, as Linda said, there are some parts of me in Addie. She's a little irreverent. She's a little bit of a misfit. She tends to get herself in trouble by not stopping to think before she says or acts. So she's generally kind of in trouble with her family, her society, her. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that's where she came from.
She's great. She's so sweet spirited, and well, she loves all the right things. Of course, I'm biased. I like her attitude, but she does, and she wants to honor people
She
and
does.
through wishes, and I can understand that. So I really like that. But the idea that she's going to now go on and do this party planning for people throughout this series, that's fascinating. I mean, that's so unique. I've never heard and treat, believe me, I've seen a lot of books. I have never seen that particular theme, and I'm excited about it.
I'm glad. I'm excited about it too. And it allows me to have really a lot of fun, like with the murders. One of the problems, if you're setting up, especially in this day and age with technology and all of the tools that are there for investigating a murder, I wanted something where the law enforcement probably wasn't too inclined to investigate too much, because then my character is kind of put in the place of, I'm really sure something is wrong, but because this person was dying anyway, nobody else is interested in, thinking that it was murder. So it kind of gives me a little bit of leeway to move around that particular little writing problem.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and tell everybody you can open up and ask whatever you want and chat. I have to tell you that we're missing about three people that I know wanted to come today.
That's too bad.
All of them are traveling, and one individual actually had a meeting that she had to lead uh, at the same time. So
Oh.
I don't. I should have canceled and come here anyway, but I did assure them that you would be on recording, so they plan to come and watch it. So
Awesome.
anyway, Bonnie, you unmuted. Are you
Yes, I did.
for it?
Oh, do you want me muted? I
Oh,
want to ask Kerry. I want to ask Kerry a question
yeah,
when
cool.
it comes time.
Go for
Time
it.
now?
Yeah.
Okay. And I love the concept of this book. This is just amazing because I used to do funerals. I used to plan these things, and somebody told me I should start doing it, and I said, "But I don't want to do that. I want to plan parties." I can't believe you're writing this. I'm going to go buy 100 of these books right now. Uh, could you tell? It's great, Carrie. It's just great. Can you tell me, or tell us what is your writing process? What is your schedule? How do you keep going?
Yeah. Well,
Or is there one? Yeah.
Process and schedule are two different things.
Right.
And
Right.
for me, and right now I'm in a kind of an awkward transition, have been for a bit that I'm trying to find my way through. So my schedule used to be for years that I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and write um, until I had to go to work, get the kids off to school, and all of that. So even after I quit the day job and the kids were all out of the house, I was still doing that because my body was so used to it that I still can't sleep in. I'm awake usually at 4:35 at the latest. I don't know. I've ruined my biorhythm forever. But it's okay. But then what happened was we adopted a dog a little over a year ago who is he's an anxious little guy, and he is afraid of my partner still a year and a couple months in. So I'm the only person who can do anything with the both dogs now. We got the extra dog because we thought it'd be easier with two dogs than one. What was I thinking? I thought they would play with each other, but no. So my mornings now tend to be hugely dog centric. They wake me up and then they're around wanting things and causing trouble until, later. And then I also work from home now. I have my own home business. So it's this me trying to find the balance between when do I do my work for my clients, manage my animals, do things for the man person in the house, because now that I'm home all the time, I'm here. So there's no reason why I shouldn't be available to help him with things. Um, so finding the writing, what's really going to work is a kind of right now a work in progress for me, but I am writing pretty regularly, just not, it's different. So
You have
um,
an amount of time that you write per day? I mean, like number of hours or
I
words or
try, I usually go by word count, is what I've always done. It's very helpful to have a deadline. And I also should say that. So after having had deadlines, sometimes 2 books a year there for a bit, actually, and then going to no deadline at all, that's a little mind trip game that I'm also working on, because the deadline is very helpful. People are waiting, and so you can't make excuses for yourself, and you can also tell other people in your world, hey, I have a deadline, leave me alone. Right? But when they know damn well you don't have a deadline, then you can't use that excuse anymore. So it's been very good for me, actually, as an artist, because I have to work to take myself seriously and to remind myself that even if I don't feel that anyone else is anxiously awaiting for this book, I want to write the book. So creating an artificial deadline is very helpful. I'm moving my second book along now because I decided to make it a Christmas book, which means I need to get off my butt and get it ready to roll so that it's out there, up there, and ready to go by that time. As far as process goes, my writing process is kind of messy. It changes book to book. Every book, if you all have you all written like more than one book, it's different, right? Every book kind of has its own little problems and its own personality, and it's never the same, I find. But I'm messy. I don't plot in a traditional sense. I have an idea, I have a premise, I know kind of what I want to have happen. I have characters, and then I throw the problem at my characters and see what they're going to do, and I start writing. But I also, as I do that, I know that I have certain things that are my job as a writer to do as I go along. So I need to take my reader, my characters through, I call it the door of no return. Like by about 50 pages in, we're moving into the plot here, and this is the point where my character can't go back. She's made a decision, she's agreed to do something, something's happened that she's now thrust forward into the book. So I know when that needs to happen, and I know something like that needs to happen. So I'm working towards that. And as I go, I know that things have to keep happening to get in the way and make things hard. I need to develop the relationships. If I'm writing the mystery, I need to drop clues in there, introduce the characters. So what usually happens for me is I get about 2/3 of the way through the book and I hit a wall. And then I'm like, okay, this is the point where I need to stop and see what I have, look at it, do some plotting at that point as far as what's working, what's not working, where do I need to pick up the pace, how do I streamline this, and I go back to the beginning, and as I go I develop my characters better, I work on their relationships, I follow threads that I dropped, and then I keep going, hopefully to the end, but often I'll get almost to the end and then I have to go back to the beginning again. And I know now I used to get really upset by this, but it's my process. I tried to do some other things. I went to some conferences and they had all these, everybody must do this and then you will get through and this won't happen to you. And it didn't work for me. It actually set me back because it's just, and I love the brainwave moments. The things that come to me are things that I never think of when I sit down and try and plan a book out at the beginning. My book, Other People's Things, one of the main characters in that book, who is Nichols' private eye boyfriend, Hawk. Well, he wasn't your boyfriend until way late in the book. I just gave you a spoiler. Anyway, Hawk did not show up in this book until I had written 3/4 of the book. I was in the shower and I'm like, something's really wrong. I don't know what it is. I don't know how I'm going to fix it. And my big ideas often come in the shower. So I'm in the shower and Hawk shows up. He's like, hi, I am a big, not handsome in a traditional sense, but still sexy private investigator. My name is Hawk and I am here to solve all of your problems. And my response was, yes, yes, you are. And then I had to go back to the beginning and write him in. So
It's great.
and
That's
now you
great.
can't,
Wow, good.
you couldn't have the book without him. So
That's great. Thank you. Wow, that's great. That's good.
you're welcome. Oh, and I had to tell you, and about the party thing, this was so fun. I have to share this now because I just found this the other day. I caught an Instagram interview with David Tennant, the Doctor Who guy, where he was talking about the funeral that he wants. And he wants a party and he wants them to sing. There's a song from Frozen, I think, that he wants them to sing. I don't know Frozen. I don't know the song. I need to go find it. But he wants it as the coffin's being lowered. All of a sudden it levitates up towards, that there's a way of it gets lifted up to the sky and there's glitter. And I was just like, oh my God, Addie would absolutely do this at a party. So I made note of it because I have to go back and have her do that.
Get a copy of your book to him.
I do. I don't know how to go about doing that, but that was my other thought is somehow I need to get him a book.
Find his agent and try to send it to his agent because they're the ones who should collect the mail.
I like this. I like this idea.
He'd get a kick out of it, I'm sure.
I laughed so hard when I saw that. I saved it and I have it. So
I actually attended one like that. I had a journalist friend on the Olympic Peninsula who was dying of cancer, and he planned this huge, huge celebration. There were over 500 people who went, and he had everything planned down to which kind of candles he wanted
oh man,
and the songs he wanted to sing, and it was absolutely amazing. And I think that's what's part of what happened with those comments that I made. I want to have a party because his was so much fun and just exactly who he was, and he went out with a bang. I love it.
See, I love that. I love that. Addie's grandmother had mentioned that perhaps she could have her ashes mixed with glitter and shot out of a cannon, which I also think would be fun.
Great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I thought your book sounded really fun too. And then I thought, oh, where can I find it locally? Look, I have your website up. And instead of sending me to Amazon, it's sending me to bookshop.org. So I have two questions. Can we get it locally? And why did you end up with bookshop.org and how did that go?
Bookshop.org is a site that you can get to any indie that you want through bookshop.org. So if you buy through bookshop.org, you can pick your indie and it will give a percentage of the sales to like Aunties or wherever if they're connected with bookshop.org. You can also go to Amazon. At the time I was doing this, I had to make a decision. Do I want to do Amazon only or do I want to take it everywhere? I decided for this book that I wanted to take it everywhere. My Carrie King books, the ebooks were Amazon only. Because they are an Amazon imprint. I was with Lake Union, and Linda couldn't get my books into Auntie's because they were published by Lake Union.
Right.
And I've been dealing with that for, 7 books now. As an author, it's an awkward position because you love indies, but the publisher that has agreed to publish you happens to be somebody who is an Amazon imprint. So you're kind of in a bit of a quandary. So this time around, I was like, well, I'm free now to do whatever I want. And then the other thing that happened is there was, as you all, I'm sure, are aware, there's a lot of political stuff going on. And I saw a lot of rumblings about an Amazon blackout, actually, on the date that I had originally planned to publish the book. And I'm like, well, that's not good. So I moved the date. But then I also just made a very definite point of making sure that it's in all of the other stores and not highlighting it to Amazon, which honestly has probably hurt my sales. But that's okay. I'm cool with that right now.
Yeah, it's hard to say these days because everything has become a real mixed bag. I mean,
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings because, I won't buy anything from Amazon, but at the same time, I go there to get book covers and look at some authors have author pages.
Yeah.
And, so I've used them for graphics and
Yeah.
to put stuff from. If an author doesn't have their own website, then I usually know they're going to have something at Amazon that I can pull.
Yeah.
So authors that we work with on these groups and stuff, they understand that, and they really are trying to do what they can to get a part of Ingram that will allow the kind of see, because a lot of it involves how much discount the
Yeah.
bookstore demands a certain amount of discount from its
Right.
suppliers, and
Right.
of course you're not going to get that from Amazon, and sometimes you can get it from Ingram, sometimes not. It just depends on your publisher and what level it's at. So it's
Yeah.
complicated.
It's complicated. It is complicated. I actually, even for the first time, I set up a kind of like a direct buy from me. There's a way of doing that. So I have a link where you can go and I'll send you a signed copy, or you can buy the ebook from me and it'll come to you from BookFunnel, rather than one of the platforms. But the other reason I chose to make it wide, is I'm trying to be strategic for once in my life. I'm usually not. I just do whatever I feel like. It gets me in trouble. But I want to be a little bit strategic, and I do want a series. And so what I thought I will do is when the second book comes out is I want to try and get a BookBub mass mailing for book 1 for this book here. I have discovered that that's much more likely to happen if BookBub can look and see that you actually have the book available on all of the outlets instead of just Amazon. So I was also just kind of looking at that as well. But
Great, thank you. Can we get it at Auntie's?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
Can they, Linda? You could probably order it for your aunties and they'd get it
Yeah.
in for you.
We'll have through Auntie's, it's one rule in terms of can you get the book, and then it's whether or not you have to special order it or it's on the shelf.
Right. It won't be on the shelf, I don't think.
In the past, not typically, because nowadays things have gotten so tight that they're not ordering in a lot of things.
Yeah.
That don't have sort of a guarantee.
Right.
We have to pay to send the books back and all that. So there's 2 rules that have to be met in order to bring in books to Auntie's. One, the distributor or whomever has to grant us a normal discount, which is usually 40%. We do that directly with authors too. 40%, they get 60, we have 40. And then the other thing is the book, if it's ordered in, it must be returnable to the distributor. Usually the authors know, and there's a little contract, so it's returnable. So there's ways of doing it, and it all depends on how the book's been set up. And I think some of your books in the past, Kerry, we brought in because we were able to put by consignment with you. you ordered the books, and
Right. Well, yeah. Well, we should talk about it.
there's different ways of doing it, and um, I should check. I thought I checked and thought that the books were had a discount in that. Now, sometimes they will order books if the discount's okay and it's not returnable. They will still order the book for a customer and say, you can't return this, and just
Right.
explain to
Right.
them.
I can't remember. I know I said it at the discount. I can't remember if I said it as returnable or not on Ingram. I think I did, but
Well, the returnable mostly has to do with automatically having the store just bring books in, and that's
right.
they can't do it. It's amazing how tight people in any business are always looking at their margins, but it's amazing how hard it is for a store to even stay open.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it. And that's the thing that I like about bookshop.org. So just, as a heads up, if you want to buy books online, you can go in there and then you can select. I would assume Auntie's is connected to bookshop.org. I'm not sure, but then you can make sure that a percentage of your sale actually goes to your preferred indie bookstore. So it's kind of like an equivalent to Amazon, and they've started doing ebooks with some of the books now. With mine, with my self-published book, I can't find a way to make it an ebook with them, but they're doing it with the trad books. So that's a nice thing too.
Association with PNBA, which is Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association, which is indie. And some of the people involved with that started this specifically as an answer to Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Its whole point. And yes, when they first opened, I was Johnny Quick in there and got us set up. So
Right.
to do with Auntie's bookstore, and they'll link you to that. And from
Yeah.
there,
Link us up, Linda. I don't know if I know that one.
individuals aren't. The store is linked up.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
Thing. So if the customer goes into bookshop.org and picks Auntie's bookstore as its affiliate that it wants to support, then every sale to that individual is automatically credited to Auntie's. That's how that system works. So, and yeah, this last year they had a beta program to look at bringing in, because people kept saying, what about local authors, and all they have maybe is an ebook and blah blah blah. And so they said, well, let's work on that, and they got it so that they were part of it, because I remember I went in with a testing thing and I couldn't get it to work because all I had was my computer to bring it to. It didn't have a smartphone that I could download the thing to. So they may have fixed that now for just computer only people. But if you use smartphone to do your stuff, then you should be able to look up ebooks from the local, because they started that as an active thing to the public a few months ago, I believe. So, but each author, I think, has to go in, or publisher, and set up their thing with bookshop.org if they want to do their ebook. Something the store
Thanks.
does.
Okay.
Clear as, right, Jonna? Uh-huh.
Kerry, I'm curious about your process with a series. So when you usually, like when you get the first, I don't know, premise, do you start to see it as a series, like you with the party planning books, or does it evolve as you're working on a particular book and say, oh yeah, this could be, I had some ideas here. Just curious.
I'm probably not I'm probably not the best person to be giving you the right answer on that, because if I have trouble plotting one book, I have trouble plotting a whole series. But it's a very, very good idea to have an eye to the series arc before getting started, I think. It was very difficult in my first trilogy, for example. I hadn't planned it at all as a trilogy. And so going from thinking of something as a standalone to all of a sudden coming up with, what's going to be the arc for 2 more books, that was really difficult. To go into this one, I have a plan. kind of for a series arc, because as you know, like if you've read a series that you love, there is that often there's, you know, the plot arc within each book, but there's also kind of the overarching um sort of bigger plot that also makes you want to read the next book. And so I am thinking about that in some ways, not as much as really dedicated plotter series people would, or as I've heard that you should do, but I'm thinking about it and I'm keeping doors open. Certain things, you know, somebody asked me a question about this book, well, why didn't you? And I'm like, well, because I want to develop that in the next book. So I didn't want to get into that in this book, but maybe in the next one. So I guess the quick answer to that is I think it's a really good idea to definitely be thinking about your series. And a lot of authors who write a series will do that. Me, not as much as I probably should, because I'm just like to make it up as I go along.
Don't mind me. I just checked Auntie's website, and the book comes up.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now it's usually shipped 3 to 7 days, which means it's coming from Ingram. And I'm gonna just for a second I'm gonna go back to my browser and look up Ingram and see what they have to say. We'll get that question answered.
Okay. All right.
You guys keep going. Just chit chat.
Let's talk amongst ourselves. Well, Linda's doing that. Does anybody else have anything that you want to know, say, comment? Because we could just be really quiet now for a while.
Let's see.
I can ask another question.
Sure.
Do you do your own covers? Do you have an agent do that? How does that process work for you?
Okay, so covers are for my traditional books, those were all completely driven by the publisher. With Lake Union, I had a lot of input, which was really nice, but other publishers, you don't really do that. Like my books through Penguin, I just got an email one day, here's your cover, hope you like it. That's you know, so the whole I try to give books, you know, we all do want to judge them by the cover. I try not to do that because often authors had nothing to do with the cover, and they often have nothing to do with the back cover copy either, by the way. So that it sucks, but that's the way it is. With the covers for my indie books, most of mine, I have hired a really good cover designer that I like and trust, who's been really quick to turn out something that fits the genre and looks like you would expect a book cover to look. And I was very happy with that. With this one, I did something a little bit different. To be really honest, this is probably not the cover that I would have chosen. So to be really honest, I should explain about that. When I decided to take this book indie, like I said, I decided to see how much fun I could have. I know a bunch of my author friends right now, some of them really highly successful. Like if I mentioned their names, you'd be like shocked to hear this, but they're not happy with their publishing contracts and they're not happy with the publishing business, and they're just you know, frustrated and irritated and feeling sort of constricted. So I decided if I'm going to do this indie, I really just want to have fun. And so part of what I did was I invited a group of my loyal readers to join me as the dream team. And I chose a cover designer who's a friend of mine who I knew would be willing to play along with us and go through multiple renditions. And I presented ideas, covers, and concepts to the dream team and polled them. Which one do you like best? Which one, you know, do you think you would buy? And that's how we actually ended up with this particular cover, was going through a group process, which was fun. My poor cover designer did so many different. She was wonderful, just very patient, and yeah.
Have you found that some work better than others, or can you actually credit it to the cover as far as
As far
sales?
Oh, sales. You know, it's hard to tell because there's so many things that go into it. I
Right.
think a good cover is really important. I really do believe that. You want to grab attention. You want to grab enough attention that the person who will like your book will pick it up, look at the back cover copy, read a page, and hopefully buy it. Right? That's the goal. So the covers are tricky. That's the other thing. Generally authors do not make good cover designers because we get too caught up on wanting to make sure that it's accurate to what we've written, and not and we don't understand, although we should, because as readers we do this, we don't understand that there are very specific things for different types of covers. You know, when you see a thriller cover, you know it's a thriller cover. When you see a romance, you know it's romance. um, so it's really important that it catches your attention, that it's similar enough to things in the genre that people can recognize it, and that it still is different enough that it grabs some attention. So it's tricky, and a really good cover designer knows all those things, and they'll, tap right into it. So that's always
Yes.
helpful.
That's why I asked you, because you're right about, I mean, both of those things. So one more question on that. On your series, do you brand it? Do you
Yeah.
brand your series like with the typeface and that kind of thing? So
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's really
I
important.
haven't seen your books yet, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Where do I have some
Well,
right
those
here?
right above you.
I
Yeah,
can. Oh yeah, it's hard for you to see them there, but
yeah.
for example. Okay, so my Shadow Valley books. They were originally the first two were originally published by a small press. Small presses are sometimes really awesome, sometimes not so much. I got my rights back and I did them indie. Um, so when I rebranded the covers, point of making sure that they
Carrie,
are exactly as you. So
Carrie, whatever you
the
did,
second,
you
the
moved
second book.
something and now we're getting echoes and stuff. So if you've said anything by your mic or anywhere, that movement threw you off. You know, when you got sat back down
I
and
think my inter. I think my
Now
internet
you're
just went
back.
unstable
there,
for a minute.
just stay back a little bit, lean back a little bit, not that far.
Okay,
You're-
Now you're good. Yeah.
are we better?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little
All right.
bit
So
in and out,
book
but
two. Well, I think my internet's decided to be fussy. And then book three. So you can see same typeface, same general idea, but we went with different colors, different,
yeah.
so
Good.
Well, I looked up the book and good news and bad news at Ingram. I was surprised because yes, in fact, you did make it returnable. However, it only has a 20% discount.
oh, did I?
So,
Oh, well, I'm
so
sorry about
pretty
that.
much no store is going to order it for anyone.
I should go fix that probably.
If you can fix that, then you're opening up a whole new world. You
Yeah.
may not want to lose 40%. It's the same as what you would lose with a consignment.
Right.
So, but that's up to you. If you can sell them better off your own site and stuff, then that's, you know, if you choose to. I think Steve started selling his himself directly on his website.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of options opening now up for people now. So
Right.
we'll see what the future brings.
Yeah, I set up a site now. I think I did that because the chances of any any store actually getting it in were really small anyways. So I just,
Well, yeah, and if it was just a matter of upfront orders, it would be one thing, but it's also no special orders.
right.
So
Oh, okay.
that's
Well,
sad. That's sad.
I
I
should,
but I'm
I,
glad I told you if you didn't know.
I should
Interesting.
fix that.
But
Note to
bookshop,
self.
in the meanwhile, can process. The difference between going for a customer to go to Auntie's might be that they can go there in person and pick the book up as opposed to having to pay shipping, which
Right.
has become something like $5.50 these days. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it,
Wow.
yeah, it's actually, it could be almost half the price of a book.
Crazy.
Anyway, everything's got its ups and downs, right?
It does. It does. And you know, we have a saying around here, which comes from my Viking, which is learning, learning, all the time learning.
Yeah. Well, the thing is people like me, we understand where you're coming from and what's behind your decisions, and frequently it is that part of the knowledge about part of the system isn't necessarily there. They don't share that with you with a lot of the stuff.
No. And I can change that. See what happens.
There you go. See what happens. I can certainly do better promotion for it, that's for sure. Anyway, but yeah, Bonnie, you were still talking about that issue. Oh, one of the things was, I may see if I can try to show them to people at some discussion group sometime, but I went to a recent webinar with someone who was talking about marketing, and she was talking about book design and all that. And I could not believe the difference between, and the covers that were she presented were ones some of them I recognized as nonfiction books. This was something to do with nonfiction books that I had reviewed for national publishers. And then she showed what she thought the cover should be and how emphasized it. My God, what a difference. And everybody in that session for every book said, oh yeah, much, much better. So
Yeah.
it convinced me that if you can hire a good cover person, somebody that's going to do your little birthday cake and not your niece and nephew and blah blah, unless they're in business, but somebody that really knows what they're doing, because they understand
Right.
what are the symbols on the front of the book that will pull in the reader you're looking for.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right. There are some very, very bad covers out there from traditional publishers, you know, no doubt whatsoever. And there are some small presses that copy really way too closely some big books that you'll see. And then you see stuff like, one of my friends was saying the other day, is like the publisher sent her a cover comp for her new book. She was like, this is not my brand. This is not my brand at all. This would be perfect for this other author that is with the same publishing company. And she's like, you know what? I bet they made this cover for one of his books and he didn't want it. So they're trying to recycle it, you know, onto me. You know, she's an experienced author who knew better, got her agent involved and said no. But if you were a newbie author, you know, you didn't want to rock the boat, you probably might just go with it, and then you'd have a cover that absolutely did not fit your book.
Yeah, and you're right. In order to get people to turn it over and read the back, get the content, which is a whole other issue of how it's been written, you've got to grab them with that front cover.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that back cover copy is getting worse though? And you know what, that they're using AI to write it. I swear to God.
Yeah.
And I might maybe not gonna swear on any Bibles, but pop in with Chat GPT to give me some ideas for how but that back cover copy is gonna go, because it's there, it exists, it's not going anywhere. But then you can be sure I'm gonna rewrite it very very dramatically before I put it out there. So, you know, it's
Well, the other thing that I've noticed, because I turn in so many reviews, I turn them in to IndieNext through Edelweiss, which is the professional site where all the bookstores order from, or all the indies do anyway. And I get to see other reviews that are being turned in. Some of them are very well written. Some of them are so smarmy, but so many of them read the same over and over, all the catchwords. And these are bookstore people who are reviewing, and in some cases probably just trying to say what they think the publisher wants them to say. And so it's kind of sad, but
It is. I had a professional review for one of my books. Think it, I think it was other people's things. There was a professional review from one of the bigger review sites, and I swear to God that person didn't read the book. She just said some things and then recommended a book that had similar words in the title, but had absolutely no resemblance to my book at
yeah,
all, and said if you like this book, you'll probably like this book.
right, right.
Read it. I know you didn't. So
Well, I've, you know, of course, well, I shouldn't go on, but I've had a lot of people, some of the folks at Scribner now are saying, can you do this? Because they go on Edelweiss, they see what you've done,
yeah.
and I write totally different reviews. I don't give you a plot line or name that, you know, usually, mostly I'm talking about the mood of the book and
Right.
the theme of it, and obviously, you know, and I'll start off talking about the topic rather than the book. Then I go into this author has da 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 da. And so somehow or other, it seems to be getting through the mush. And yeah,
That's good. That's a good thing, Linda. It's an art writing
yeah,
review.
I think I'm beginning to think it is. Well, I don't have time to write my mystery. I'm too busy writing reviews. But anyway, they're like little short stories, you know.
Yeah, and hard. They're hard. One of the hardest writing things I ever do is when I get asked to write a blurb for another author's book, you know, those little review quote things. Those are hard to do. You really want to pull in, you know, the feel of the book and make it be something that a reader will be interested in, but you only have a few words.
Well, see, I write a whole review, and then they will sometimes they've come back and said, "Oh, can we use a part of this for a blurb?" And I go, "Sure, you can take it apart, you can do it upside down. I don't care. I've already done the review. You use it the way you want." And so they'll pull out the salient things. I can usually tell in advance what they're gonna, you know,
Yeah.
want to pull
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah. Well, that's awesome you do that, but you need to write your book.
yeah, I'm working with Elena on she, you know, she has allegory editing, and I'm working with her, just getting started now on working on a mystery that I've been writing for many years. I was going to say earlier, you mentioned you reach a block, and I thought, gosh, if I get a block, and my first thing is maybe it should be a short story, maybe it should be flash fiction. You know, because it's like, are you kidding me? I have to make it this long, Lord. So
See, I can't write short. That's
oh,
my ideas are never short stories. I think, oh, that would be no, it's going to be a novel.
yeah.
And I think it was Bonnie had asked, and I didn't answer this actually. I sometimes do time during a day, like, okay, I'm going to write for an hour, and I do, you know, time myself. Sometimes that'll do it. It works best if you set it up as sprints. So it's like, okay, I'm going to write for 20 minutes. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, see how many words I can write in that 20 minutes, or how much I can, you know, how much content I can get through. That pushes you shut off the critical part of your brain and actually get some work done. I also like when I'm really working, I set myself word count goals. I need to get back to that. That works well for me. I am a competitive soul, and so if I compete with myself, that works. So I figure out usually, okay, I want to have the book done by this time. How many words do I have that I need to write before then? Divide that up. How many is that a week? And then set it to have a daily / weekly goal. So that because that helps. Like if my usual goal, if I'm really working, is a minimum 1,000 words a day. And so if I'm writing along and I've only hit 800, it's pretty easy to make myself get back in for a few minutes at the end of the day to write another 200 words. Like, oh, come on, you can do 200 words. So that helps me actually a lot to do word count.
Well, Elena suggested I sit down for 15 minutes and write and then see what happens. And
Yeah, there you go.
by the end of 15 minutes, let me see, I should have my virtual pencil sharpened. I should have my cup of coffee made, and I'll just get here. But 15 minutes is up. Okay.
But that's not sitting down to write. You have to get your
good. I know.
virtual pencil before you start the timer. See,
that's why you have a bunch of books out. You have the discipline it takes to do it.
I have an app on my phone that I also use. Like if I'm, hang on a second, because I can never remember what it's called for some reason. It is Tide, Tide, and it's free. And you can set focus times, and I find that really helpful. So you can pick a sound that you like. There are a bunch of free ones. You can also pay if you want other things, but I have the free version. You can set it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you like. Pick your sound, turn it on, and then you sit there and keep your fingers moving until that timer stops. That can be really helpful for focus.
No smartphone, so I will use a cooking timer.
There you go.
Works just fine.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
You can also do, like if you're having trouble getting to your work, writing with friends. So setting up a time where you are all, you can either get online, Zoom, or you can just call each other and keep the phone line open. Say, put the phone down. We're going to write now for 15 minutes. And then you check in. It's like, how many words did you write? What, and then go back to work again. Because then you have the motivation pressure of having somebody else there with you.
This has been wonderful. Before we close, you can all see the chat if you have the chat up. I'll just tell you verbally. In any event, it's Kerry's website is at All Things Kerry, KERRY.com. They always give you all that front stuff too, HTTPS, but you don't need that.
You can just do www.
Yeah, they dropped that. They used to use it all, and now they don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
And if you ever have trouble, just a little thing. Sometimes old people like mine, until I fix it, are floating around out there without the S. The S is when it's secure, and you can just add the S in there, and on your web, and it usually just fools the border guards, and it doesn't have to be really a registered. So many people don't want to pay the fees anymore for the safety certification. So anyway, any other last minute comments, questions, yahoos or woohoos, or Kerry thinks she's going to go change that thing on Auntie. So I advise you don't have to wait. But in the meanwhile, if you want to, I'll let you know in email when she gets that set up. So
no pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure, no deadlines, Kerry, nothing. And we will have this up online too for everybody. As a matter of fact, I better remember to turn off the recording, and then you can cuss and swear and do all that kind of stuff.
Oh, good.
We all like to do that when we're